The building above you is on fire, and the only staircase just collapsed. This is not a rare disaster. This is Tuesday in the Subura, the most crowded slum in ancient Rome, where you live on the 6th floor of a wooden tenement that was never meant to hold this much weight, this much fire, or this many desperate people packed into rooms the size of a modern closet. By the end of this video, you'll understand the one invention that Rome used to control you, to feed you, and to kill you, all at the same time. Hold on to that thought, because it explains everything that happens next. You wake before dawn, if you slept at all. Sleep is hard when the insula, your apartment block, groans under its own weight every time the wind picks up. These buildings rise 5, 6, sometimes 7 stories, built fast and cheap by landlords who never plan to live in them. The lower floors are brick. The upper floors, where you live, are timber and mud. Rome has no building codes worth the name. A landlord named Crassus, yes, the same Crassus who later became one of the richest men in Roman history, built his fortune buying burning buildings for pennies and rebuilding them just as badly. He is not an outlier. He is the system. You share your floor with strangers, 6 or 7 people to a room, no plumbing, no kitchen. You cannot cook up here. Open flame this high in a wooden building means death for everyone below you, so cooking is banned. Instead, you eat cold, or you buy hot food from a thermopolium, a stone counter with pots sunk into it, on the street below. Archaeologists excavating Pompeii have uncovered dozens of these counters still stocked with the bones of the last meal ever served there. That is how normal and how fragile this life is. But food is the easy part. Water is where it gets dangerous. Rome is famous for its aqueducts, for baths, for fountains that never stop running. None of that reaches you. The engineering marvels serve the wealthy villas and the public baths near the center. Up here on the 6th floor of a slum, you carry every drop of water up dozens of stairs yourself, from a public fountain shared by hundreds of families. And that water is already compromised. The historian and engineer Vitruvius warned in his own writings that Rome's lead pipes were poisoning the water supply, slowly, invisibly, for anyone who drank from them long enough. You don't know what lead poisoning is. You just know your neighbors go strange in the head, and nobody can say why. Here's the part that should terrify you more than the fire risk. It doesn't. You've stopped noticing the smell. The streets outside are an open sewer, human waste, animal carcasses, spoiled food, all of it pooling in the gutters because the famous Cloaca Maxima, Rome's grand sewer system, was built for the temples and forums, not for you. The Roman satirist Juvenal wrote about the constant danger of simply walking beneath these buildings, where residents dump chamber pots straight out the window onto the street below, sometimes onto your head. There were even laws about it because it happened so often that lawmakers had to decide who pays when human waste falls from 6 stories and hits a stranger. And still, it gets worse. Fire is not the only thing that can bring your home down without warning. These buildings collapse. Not occasionally, regularly. The upper floors are added illegally, extra stories stacked onto foundations that were never built to hold them, because more floors means more rent from more desperate tenants. Landlords know the risk. They rent the top floors, the most dangerous ones, to the poorest people, because when it collapses, and it will, they've already made their money. The Roman poet Juvenal again described the sound Rome's poor lived with constantly, the creak and shudder of a building announcing it might come down tonight, and you sleeping through it anyway because you have nowhere else to go. So what actually kept you alive here? Not the aqueducts, not the roads, not the emperor's grand architecture that tourists still photograph 2,000 years later. It was the crowd itself. Modern historians studying Roman demography, including work built on the population estimates of Peter Garnsey, have found that Rome's slums survived through sheer density and improvised mutual aid. Neighbors who watched each other's children while you worked, shared food when a landlord evicted a family with no notice, a network of informal watchmen, because the official vigils, Rome's fire, and police force could never reach the 6th floor of a burning tenement fast enough to matter. You survived because the person next to you, packed into the same suffocating room, had every incentive to make sure you survived too. That is the twist. Rome's grandest achievement wasn't the buildings. It was never really about architecture at all. The empire that built roads across 3 continents let its own poorest citizens live stacked on top of each other in fire traps, because a packed building generates more rent than an empty one, and a poor tenant has nowhere else to go. You can still see it today. Look at any modern city with a housing crisis, cramped apartments, absentee landlords, buildings that pass inspection on paper and fail it in practice. And you are looking at the Subura with better plumbing. The mechanism hasn't changed in 2,000 years. Density is profitable. Safety is optional. And the people at the bottom pay for both. So the next time you walk into an old building and it creaks, remember what that sound meant in Rome. It meant get out or don't, because most people never had anywhere else to go. The fire above you is still burning. The staircase is still gone. And somehow, this was still just Tuesday.